Rupert Murdoch needn't have worried about the Fairfax Group when, in the first flurry of media reform manoeuvring last year, he bought a small but significant parcel of shares in the company. Back then, Murdoch indicated it was a friendly purchase to give him a seat at the table in the event of a hostile incursion. But as it turns out, rather than being the hunted, Fairfax became the hunter.
Macquarie Media Group and Fairfax Media announce agreements to acquire the assets of Southern Cross Broadcasting.
More on Fairfax in a moment. Dismembering the cross-media rules and loosening the foreign ownership laws was always bound to shake out the media landscape. But even before the reforms became law this year, the jostling that Communications Minister Helen Coonan said would be minor was in fact tumultuous. Here's the latest on who owns what in an increasingly confusing series of financial plays.
Kerry Stokes sells half of Channel 7 to foreign equity investors KKR and takes 16% of the West Australian. He also takes the Australian titles of Time Inc.
James Packer sells 75% of Nine, as well as his magazine business and other media assets, to the Hong Kong equity group CVC.
Rupert Murdoch targets federal publishing, picking up magazines like Vogue and a raft of East Coast local newspapers.
The Canadian Asper family failed to find a buyer for Channel 10, so they took advantage of the new laws to take control of the network instead.
Billionaire media player Bruce Gordon, owner of Win TV, has snapped up Channel 9 Adelaide and Perth.
Fairfax buys Albury-Wodonga's Border Mail, then merges with Rural Press, bolstering its stable with 240 regional and community newspapers across Australia.
And now Fairfax announces a deal to shake off the shackles of old world print publishing and pave the way for the group to move into a new age. So what's the deal? Well, Fairfax and Macquarie Media Group, owned by the Macquarie Bank, are carving up Southern Cross Broadcasting. As a result, Fairfax Media moves back into the metropolitan radio market that it gave up 20 years ago. It'll take all of Southern Cross's radio interests, 4BC and 4BH in Brisbane, 2UE in Sydney, 3AW and Magic in Melbourne, and Perth's 6PR and 96FM. And Fairfax buys Southern Cross's film and television production arm, Southern Star, which produces shows like Big Brother and Deal or No Deal. That will give Fairfax the capacity not only to create online entertainment, but to inject its online news pages with more video content. Fairfax CEO David Kirk is certainly convinced of the potential.
And the acquisition of Southern Star gives Fairfax a position in digital entertainment video with a capacity to develop and distribute it that we believe will be very valuable in the future.
Sure will. It's 4 major state capital radio stations, more than 200 newspaper titles, and dozens of online businesses can work furiously at cross-promotion and selling cross-media advertising packages. For its part, Macquarie Bank's media arm, MMG, entrenches its position as the dominant force in Australian regional radio. The deal gives MMG a potential audience reach of some 95% of the population outside the state capital cities. The Macquarie Media Group already owns 87 radio stations across the country. Now it will buy from Fairfax 9 commercial radio licences in South Australia and Queensland, and MMG will pick up Southern Cross's regional television businesses in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, and Southern Cross Television in Northern Australia, Central Australia and Tasmania. Though first, MMG will have to clear a few hurdles. In some regions of Australia, this deal will leave MMG in breach of the media ownership rules. For example, in Bundaberg, in Queensland, MMG already owns 1 radio station, CFM. It'll pick up another 2 from Fairfax when this deal gets the nod, as well as a TV station it's buying from Southern Cross. So MMG will own all 3 major commercial radio stations, a significant country music station, and 1 TV station. To comply with the law, it'll have to sell just 1 radio station. But that means Bundaberg will remain an almost entirely MMG city, and that concerns National Party MP Paul Neville.
It is a massive concentration of electronic media ownership, though it appears the company has acted quite legitimately.
Indeed they have. MMG will be in breach of the media laws in other parts of Australia as well, but it's already told the Broadcasting Authority that it'll sell licences in Emerald, Mount Isa, Charters Towers, Atherton, Roma and Kingaroy in Queensland, Young in New South Wales, Warragul in Victoria, and Devonport, Burnie, Scottsdale and Queenstown in Tasmania. But who'll buy the licences that MMG plans to sell, and will the new owners be a viable independent voice? MMG says,
MMG will work with management and with staff to ensure that any impact is minimised and that the stations are sold as going concerns.
Well, that's just what the local member is worried about.
What is paramount is that diversity, competition and localism are not compromised. One would expect that the owners of the third station would be a truly independent competitor in terms of ownership of licence, programming and control.
In other words, selling an asset doesn't necessarily mean you don't have influence. There's lots of ways of protecting your patch, especially when you get to decide who your next competitor will be. Now that's the program for tonight. Thanks for being with us.